Welcome everyone, welcome to the SciManDan podcast, the place where science and conspiracy collide. We're on episode 8, we're really going for it now. A bit of bad news, Katz unfortunately can't join us this week. He's got some work commitments, but he will be back next week, do not worry. I was going to chat with him about a bit of flat earth news, but we'll save that till next week. And I also had his jingle ready to go, but we'll do that next week too. He's very excited about his jingle. Anyway, we'll bring on today's guest straight away. He's an expert on conspiracy theories, professor of American literacy and cultural history at Tubingen University, author and principal investigator of the Populism and Conspiracy Theory Project. It's Michael Butter. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
No problem. Did I pronounce that right, the university?
Yes, you did.
Good. I wanted to, because I wanted to chat with you about this university in particular, because I have read up a lot about the history of astronomy. And who I think is one of the most underrated scientists of all time is Johannes Kepler, who taught at that university, did he not?
He may have. I have to say I'm completely unfamiliar of that, so I don't really know. But I mean, this is one of the oldest German universities and
Yes.
One of the most traditional ones, and a lot of famous people have worked here over the years, so it might well be possible. I would trust you completely on that.
Well, good. Well, that was what I was going to ask. Actually, I was going to say, is there a lot of stuff about him there? But I guess not.
No, actually not. But the thing is that the university is really spread out across town.
Okay.
And there is this conflict between the valley where the humanities are, where I am, and up on the hill where the natural sciences are. So they might be remembering him there. And I rarely ever get there. I mean, I rarely ever make it to the town center because I have 2 small kids. So I'm basically commuting between the suburb where we live and my office here. But I'm sure he is being remembered and appreciated by the people who understand his work.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure whenever I have conversations about astronomy, people very rarely know who he is. And I was just wondering if the university they did, but obviously it could be the science department.
That might actually be that people don't know who he is, might actually be a cultural thing, because I I'm not aware I wasn't aware that he taught here, but I was perfectly aware of who he is. And I think most Germans are. So because he might be more remembered in German accounts of astronomy.
Yeah, a little bit like Newton over here, but I mean, everyone knows who Newton is, don't they? So, I'd like to think so. Anyway, I guess the first question we should get into is, what got you interested in conspiracy theories in the first place?
Oh, there was a lot of coincidence involved.
Okay.
If we believe in coincidence, which of course conspiracy theorists do not. So I did my PhD on representations of Adolf Hitler in American literature. Now, I could tell you a long story of how I got into that. There would be more coincidence there. But so basically what I looked at is American texts, mostly popular fictional texts from the late 1930s to the early 21st century, in which Hitler appears as a character.
Right.
And I traced that chronologically. And once you arrive in the 1970s or 80s, you get a lot of conspiracy thrillers that always have a similar plot line. Something like, it's spring 1945. Hitler's pregnant lover is smuggled out of Germany on board of a submarine. Cut. 40 years later, Hitler's son / daughter / clone is about to become American president. A lone CIA agent learns about this conspiracy and tries to foil it, but there's a whole network of Nazi agents operating in the United States trying to stop him. And will he be able to stop Hitler from occupying the White House? So once you're there, you have to deal with conspiracy and conspiracy theory. So I got into the topic and I read the classical cultural studies books that came out in the late 1990s, Peter Knight's book on conspiracy culture, Mark Fenster's book on conspiracy theories. And that really got me into that topic. And then I said, well, I can teach a class about that. And then I was looking for a second book project. And I thought, well, let's tell the prehistory of that, because these books only begin in the 1960s. And I said, well, let's tell the story from the 17th century to the Cold War. And let's see how that fits their argument.
Wow. Yeah, that is I mean, it's funny you mentioned the Hitler thing, because I don't know if you know of the conspiracy theory of the Hollow Earth. Do you know that one?
Yes, of course.
Because they talk about
Nazis and dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had a conversation on what happens. Like, do the Nazis ride the dinosaurs? Are they eaten by the dinosaurs? You know,
this is one of my all-time favorite movie trailers. The one which I'm forgetting the title now, where the Nazis are living behind the moon.
Okay.
And there's the sequel where you see Sarah Palin. The trailer is there. You see Sarah Palin in the White House, and basically the world is ending. So she's flown in a helicopter to the North Pole, where she reveals her reptile hand to open the secret pathway to the Hollow Earth, where she is greeted after a short elevator ride by Adolf Hitler on a T-Rex.
Wow. That's crazy, isn't it?
I'll try to remember the title of the film.
Yeah, I don't think I've obviously not seen that, but it's right though, isn't it? They're like, I don't know where these theories come from, because it's completely not plausible, is it? That this is something that could be possible.
No, not at all. And of course, I mean, there are, interestingly enough, people who believe, I think, at the same time that the Earth is flat and that the Earth is hollow, which is a characteristic of conspiracy theories in the present, that people sometimes hold mutually exclusive beliefs because they run counter to the official version, which is all that matters to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we find that a lot. We find that anything going against anything that is mainstream, anything against official, they'll go against that no matter what the story is or whatever the line is or anything. One of the first things that stood out to me in your book was the notion of a conspiracy theory, and that perhaps it would be better to refer to it as an ideology. But you're saying perhaps that theory is the better word.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is, and this is, I mean, because the book was originally written in German and then translated, and I didn't change all of it, that in Germany there has been for 2 decades a bit of a discussion about the term conspiracy theory, or Verschwörungstheorie in German.
Right.
We don't have any discussion like that in any other country. So I chaired a network of scholars from 40 different countries for a couple of years, and in no language is there a similar discussion, only in German. So people are saying, well, maybe we should call it conspiracy ideology or conspiracy myth, because conspiracy theories aren't really theories. But the thing is that analytical philosophers and sociologists all agree that conspiracy theories share more with scientific theories and everyday theories than we might like, because they try to explain the world on the basis of a couple of interconnected assumptions. And if we look at conspiracy theory, these assumptions are nothing happens by accident, nothing is as it seems, and everything is connected. So conspiracy theory, I think, at the end of the day, is not only the established term, it's also the best term for what we're dealing with, because people are developing theories about the world, even though these theories might strike others as completely useless and rubbish.
Yeah, they are. And one of the things that irks us a lot is, obviously, a scientific theory is not the same as a normal theory. It's obviously the same word but different meaning. And conspiracy theorists, they latch onto that quite a lot, and they say, gravity, it's only a theory. Yeah. It's almost like they're using their own definition of a theory and putting it next to as a scientific theory.
Yeah, and I mean, in Germany, and I think also in English, there is this distinction between this is theory and this is real. So the conspiracy theorists are saying, I don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist because these are real conspiracies. I'm not only theorizing about them. So they have a different notion of theory there. And of course, interestingly enough, they also have a conspiracy theory about the origin of the word conspiracy theory, because it's, of course, a highly stigmatizing term. So so this term emerges in the late 19th century. It has a slightly different meaning back then, however, and it's then coined in its modern meaning by Karl Popper in The Open Society and Its Enemies shortly after World War II. But the conspiracy theorists believe that the term was invented by the CIA in the 1960s to disqualify critique of the official version of the Kennedy assassination. So this shows you that you're not really doing conspiracy theorists a favor if you don't call them conspiracy theorists, which is what the argument sometimes goes like in Germany.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, because they don't like being called it at all, do they?
No, not at all.
Not at all. And you mentioned there, which something else I also loved about it was the three basic assumptions which you mentioned, which is nothing happens by accident, nothing is as it seems, and everything is connected. Now, I've genuinely tied it to so many conspiracy theories since I read about that, and the flat Earth one in particular works well with that. But have you found any instances where that doesn't quite fit with a particular conspiracy theory?
Yeah, I think the thing is that it particularly fits contemporary conspiracy theories because since conspiracy theories stopped being widely accepted knowledge at some point in the 1950s, 60s, and became counter-narratives, there has been a tendency towards what Michael Barkun, the political scientist who also came up with these three criteria, calls super conspiracy theories. That is, the conspiracy theory is not only about a specific event or a specific group, the Jews or 9/11, but it is about the New World Order that brings together many different groups of conspirators. So there really everything is connected. But if you look into the past, into the 17th or 18th or 19th century, then you have conspiracy theories that are more limited in scope and that they really focus on a specific group or a specific event. And there, this criterion of everything is connected doesn't always quite fit. So it's not a coincidence that someone like Barkun, who really looks at the second half of the 20th century, comes up with everything is connected as a criterion, whereas someone like the English historian Geoffrey Cubitt, who studied 18th and 19th century conspiracy theories in much detail, his criteria are intentionalism, so basically nothing happens by accident, occultism, nothing is as it seems, but then he stresses dualism. It's always a conflict between good and evil, and he doesn't really stress this everything is connected part, because it really works for 20th century conspiracy theories, but not always for 18th or 19th century conspiracy theories.
Okay, so let's say the Illuminati then, the theory about the Illuminati. I mean, is that a more recent one? Because you could definitely say that people would say that's connected, wouldn't you, the Illuminati?
Yeah, it's actually not a recent one, but it's a very old one. But of course, it's been twisted in the 20th century. Okay. So we get the first conspiracy theories about the Illuminati already in the late 18th and then the early 19th century, when scholars in France, in Germany, and in Scotland, Augustin Baruel in France, Johann August Stark in Germany, and John Robison in Scotland, all developed this theory that the French Revolution was secretly orchestrated by the Freemasons and the Illuminati. And this is a conspiracy theory that is very prominent for a couple of decades. Sure. And then the Illuminati kind of disappear from the picture. So the people then focus on the Freemasons, and they also focus on the Jews. They bring the Jews into the picture. So if you look at the protocols of the Elders of Zion, it's the Freemasons and the Jews collaborating. And then you get Helen Nestor Webster, who is this British aristocrat who starts out by writing novels about the French Revolution and then becomes a conspiracy theorist. And she really resuscitates the Illuminati, and she merges them again with the Freemasons and with accusations about the Jews. And there we have something like the first super conspiracy theory early in the 20th century, in the 1920s and 30s, where the Illuminati are collaborating with the communists and with the Jews and a couple of others to bring about the doom of the world. And she is highly influential. So she is corresponding with someone like Ezra Pound and even Winston Churchill in one of his anti-Semitic conspiracy theory speeches refers to her.
It's interesting because I get called in the comments of my channel. I've been called Jewish. I've been called a Freemason. I've been called a member of the Illuminati. So it all ties in that so many, because I not only do I cover Flat Earth, I spend a day a week doing another type of conspiracy theory as well. And so there was one guy who he had a pizza box from a pizza shop down near where he lived, and he basically, his entire video, he got this pizza box and he dissected it into all the Freemason imagery. He had some sort of he had a star in the middle. It was ridiculous, like every single tiny little bit. And I did this video, and he was not happy at all. That I'm not harsh in my videos. I always make a point of attacking the idea, not the person. He did not take it well at all, and I was an automatic Freemason for even questioning his theories.
Yeah, I can completely understand that because I mean I haven't been called a Jew, but people have aligned me with the Freemasons, also with the Illuminati. I remember for a Swiss magazine once that interviewed me, we did a couple of pictures, and in one picture I do this pyramid across my eye, and of course it's
Nice.
it's clearly staged,
Yeah.
and it's but I was called a Satanist and an Illuminati because of that. So I'm always also a member of the New World Order, an enemy of truth. Yep. I'm brain dead. So all the things that we get called. I mean, I know you get the same things.
Yeah, I've got a habit as well when I talk of doing hand signals. So if I'm like talking about something, and sometimes I do that, and it's the devil horns.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, in Germany, we have Angela Merkel always does this when she's standing there and talking, and then people think she's a member of the Illuminati. But the thing I also get called recently in Germany is that people have started calling me a fascist.
Really?
Because the people who are protesting against the corona measures, they think that it's 1933 again, and that this is the beginning of dictatorship, and that very soon they will be given the choice to get into the gas or get vaccinated. Yeah. And it's horrible because people really believe that, and you can see in their videos how they are suffering. But it's become really, really rough because people who said, "Well, I think you're an idiot. Why are you doing this?" 2 years ago are now beginning their mails to me saying, "You fascist."
Yeah, that's not cool at all. But funny you should say that, because I recently did my last video was a little bit about the coronavirus and what's going on, and it appears that people that laugh with me at flat earthers, some of them are talking about the things you just said there. You know, like back to the 1930s, and it just made me open my eyes a bit, thinking, okay, not everyone believes that all conspiracies are rubbish. Some actually believe that they're not. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. I mean, the best predictor, of course, for if somebody believes in a conspiracy theory is that he or she also already believes in another conspiracy theory. But of course, not everybody believes everything. So I always get chided also in reaction to the book for throwing all conspiracy theories into one bag by talking about 9/11 in the same way with the protocols of the Elders of Zion and David Icke. And my answer to that is that structurally they're really the same. And honestly, I think the evidence provided by people who believe that 9/11 was an inside job is as convincing as the evidence provided by people who believe that the earth is flat. But of course, this really drives these people mad if you put all of this together.
Yeah, they're incensed. You mentioned about a mathematician called David Grimes in the book, and that he postulated that a secret like the moon landing being faked would have been blown open within 4 years. What parameters is he using there to get that number?
So what he's doing, and I mean, this is really interesting on the one hand, and I think on the other hand, it's quite silly because it's really a mathematical, tip of the finger exercise, is that he makes assumptions about how many people would have had to be involved in a specific conspiracy, the moon landing or the 9/11 attacks. And then he makes assumptions about if there's that many people, it'll take that long for people to talk. And I think with the moon landing, there would be hundreds of thousands of people involved. So he assumes that this would be revealed within 4 years. I think with 9/11, it would be slightly fewer people, and therefore it would take a little bit longer. But of course, he has a point there. I talk a lot to journalists, and what journalists always tell me is somebody always talks. So, I mean, in Germany, what we're regularly having these days is that every couple of weeks our chancellor meets with the governors of the different states, and even if they decide not to talk during the break, somebody will always talk, even though it's not even 20 people in that room. And of course, with thousands of people involved in the conspiracy, somebody would talk. Or with the Kennedy assassination, why haven't there been any deathbed confessions? So this renders all of these large conspiracy scenarios extremely unlikely.
Absolutely. The moon landing one is, I think you're right. I mean, it would have been hundreds of thousands of people. But by the same stroke, we sometimes see things like where Buzz Aldrin. I don't know if you've seen the interview of Buzz Aldrin, and he's talking to a little girl, and he's basically saying it was difficult to go back, but he kind of messed his words up a bit, and the conspiracy theorists cut out a bit that said we didn't go, and they ran with that, and you just think, No.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they do. I once believed in the moon landing conspiracy theory.
You did?
For 3 minutes, about 3 minutes.
Okay.
So that was 1999, and that was my first conscious encounter with conspiracy theories.
Okay.
I was studying in England at UEA Norwich, and it was the 30th anniversary of the moon landing, and the student magazine had a large cover story on how the moon landing had been faked inside of a TV studio. And I read that, and I was like 22 years old, and my world changed. And I thought, this is so convincing. Why did nobody ever tell me that? It's so obvious. And well, I took a deep breath, and I think I sipped on my pint, and then I turned the page, and then there was all the counter evidence, and then I felt really, really silly. So, but I was a moon landing conspiracy theorist at least for a minute or so.
You've admitted it though. That's fair enough. You admit. I'm trying to think of I don't know if I've ever. I don't know if I have. I don't know if I have. I remember. That people always ask me to do 9/11 videos, but the problem is I don't know anywhere near enough about it to debunk the people who are claiming it's an inside job. There's obviously people far more qualified. My remit is like earth science and stuff like that. But I get asked about it all the time, 9/11, and it's it seems to be a real. It seems to be one that people are really latching onto because it seems quite convincing, doesn't it? Some of the evidence.
Yeah, I mean, to some people it doesn't. I think it also had these tremendous effects, legitimizing a war, other things. And it seems so convincing on the surface, like 3 towers collapsed, but you only have 2 planes. But I mean, plain logic helps a lot because I think it's a wonderful example for showing how this nothing happens by accident works. Because if you take the official version of 9/11, it's of course a conspiracy theory in the sense that it postulates a conspiracy, and a conspiracy by Al-Qaeda. Terrorists hijacking these planes. But then, of course, in this theory, you have one plane being brought down by the passengers near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and not hitting its target. And even with the 2 planes hitting the Twin Towers, do you think Al-Qaeda knew that the towers would eventually collapse? I'm not really sure. I don't think they knew that. But even if they did, they certainly did not count on they certainly did not count on debris from the Twin Towers damaging the 3rd building, World Trade Center 7, to such a degree that it also eventually collapsed. So there's a lot of coincidence of what happened there. But if you take the conspiracy theory that it was an inside job, then something very fishy happened with the 4th plane that was brought down in Pennsylvania, because of course it can't be that the passengers interfered with the plan of the conspirators. And then, of course, the Twin Towers and World Trade Center number 7 were brought down by controlled demolition, which means that somebody somehow managed to plant the explosives in the steel carriers of these 3 buildings, then managed to fly 2 planes into the Twin Towers without setting off the explosives, and managed to damage the Twin Towers in such a way that the debris from the Twin Towers would damage the 3rd building in such a way that you could afterwards somehow legitimately claim that it had been destroyed because of the damage done by the debris. So there you see how unlikely these things become, and the role of coincidence in a theory that might be about a conspiracy but is not a conspiracy theory, and the complete exclusion of coincidence in what we call a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I mean, I knew someone who, because they heard that the insurance was taken out 2 weeks before or something to include terrorist attacks, they were sold. That was it. They needed no other evidence other than that. It boggled my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with the BBC reported the collapse of World Trade Center 7, I think 20 minutes before it actually collapsed.
Yeah.
And you have this footage where the reporters in the studio, and you see World Trade Center 7 in the background. And the conspiracy theorists then say, this is foreknowledge. Yeah. And here something slightly went wrong. They're reporting on that too wrong, but they knew they had to report on that. If you just think about it, the building had been evacuated because 2 other buildings had already collapsed that day and had killed many many people.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
and there's this utter confusion on the ground. And of course, they knew the building would collapse. And then, of course, how this transforms into the news the building has already collapsed, it's quite easy to understand. But of course, for the conspiracy theorists, this is impossible because this would be too much coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I mean, you obviously know a lot of conspiracy theories and you know a lot about them. But what I genuinely want to know is, what is the strangest conspiracy theory that you've ever heard of?
Well, until a couple of weeks, my answer to that question always was it's David Icke's theory about reptilians in human form ruling the earth. But honestly, I think by now it is the idea that Hugo Chavez somehow, a couple of years after his death, was involved in manipulating the 2020 US elections, as Donald Trump's lawyer claimed in one of her, for her more outrageous speeches, where she said, well, these voting machines have been manipulated and Hugo Chavez was involved. And I was thinking, this must be the craziest conspiracy theory I've ever heard.
Yeah, that is that. I mean, I would have been with you on the David Icke one, but that's a different level, isn't it?
It's outrageous, and I mean, and the thing that you go and you bring something like this to court, it's almost unimaginable.
Yeah. It's funny you should mention David Icke, actually, because I once tackled one of his theories that Saturn used to be a star. Now, I'm astronomy is probably my specialist subject, so I debunked it quite thoroughly. But how dangerous is it to have someone of David Icke's personality spreading all of this rubbish? Because I see him everywhere, and he's on big YouTube channels with millions of viewers. It's not good, is it?
I think it's not good. I mean, I think his conspiracy theory is a very interesting one, in that this is one where we can really trace it back to this one person. Usually conspiracy theories are not attached to a single person to such an amazing degree. And I have to say, I never really managed to watch one of his 9-hour talks in its entirety. So and the thing is that he's not like other conspiracy theorists at first sight, right? Because very often they're very loud and aggressive, and he actually has a sense of humor. He's quite calm. So for the first 3 or 4 hours of one of his talks, this feels like a kind of self-help thing. Yeah, let's be nicer to each other. And then all the stuff with the Jews comes along and with other people. And I think this is what makes it really particularly dangerous.
Yeah, I have to admit, if I was down the pub and I was chatting with him and he wasn't talking about conspiracy theories, I'd probably get along with him. I'd be like, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the same I feel. I mean, there are many conspiracies. I mean, take someone like Alex Jones, for example. I couldn't imagine getting along with Alex Jones for just a minute. And he feels so intense. Whereas with David Icke, I would say, well, let's talk about football and these things, and a couple of other things. And let's have another drink, and let's not talk about the reptilians. And
I mean, it was the one and only time I've tackled, I think, because he doesn't do much about astronomy and things like that. But I don't think I'm going to go near David Icke again.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So Katz, the co-host, the normal co-host, and I are entrenched in the world of flat earthers. I'm fairly sure there's not much we don't know about flat earth and the people that propagate it. How much experience have you had with them?
I have to say, surprisingly little experience. So most of what I know about flat earthers comes from reading about them and watching this Netflix documentary. But the flat earth isn't really that important in the conspiracy theorists' emails that I get here. And it's not really important on the conspiracy theory websites that I monitor and that I engage with. Maybe because these people are more interested in the hollow earth and the Nazis secretly surviving. That might be the case. But so I know, of course, about the theory, and I think most of the things that I know about other conspiracy theories also apply to that. But I haven't really had a lot of personal experience with people who believe that.
Well, I mean, I was saying before we started, I do know of a couple of German creators who are flat earthers, but the majority of them seem to be US and UK based. The US, apparently, after some polling, which I don't 100% trust, they say 1 in 10 US are doubtful that the Earth is a globe. Does that surprise you? 1 in 10?
I mean, 1 in 10 is a big number. I know that with these polls, it's always very important how you exactly word things. So with the QAnon conspiracy theory, for example, you get vastly different results depending on how you ask it. But I'm not entirely surprised, I have to say, because we know that, I mean, every second American believes in at least one conspiracy theory. We also know that if you believe in one, you tend to believe in more. There is so much skepticism about established science, especially, I think, in the United States these days. I think this is one of the things why it's not so popular in Germany, where people might, I mean, even the German conspiracy theory community is very divided about something like climate change. And now they're all that thinking that Corona is a hoax and they're anti-vaxxers. But usually they don't challenge the basic laws of science and insights to such a degree. I think this has more to do, is more prominent in the US, where many people just never really learned about that in school.
Absolutely.
So I think education is an important factor.
Indeed. Katz and I talk about it quite a bit, and we often say it's not necessarily their fault, because, you know, they might not have got the education that others have.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that education and belief in conspiracy theories are negatively correlated. The better educated you are, the less likely you are to believe in conspiracy theories, which does not mean that there aren't highly educated conspiracy theorists. But statistically, of course, you're far more likely to be a conspiracy theorist if you're worse educated than somebody else.
There's an interesting trend here in the UK, or an interesting statistic that I've discovered. And there seems to be like a North-South divide in the UK. And the majority of flat earthers in the UK who make content and who are in and around YouTube are above that line. What do you make of that? The north of the country seem to be more flat earth.
That's an interesting thing. So I mean, I used to be very Anglophile, studied in the UK and everything. So, but these days are in a way over in a way. So I don't know that much about the UK any more than I did before. But I would say that it might be that the level of education differs. I mean, we know that these are the poorer parts. And we also know that something that drives belief in conspiracy theories, of course, is if people feel powerless and if people feel out of control. And
there's a lot of people feeling out of control at the moment.
And I think this is something that might correspond with this, that the people in the South might think, well, actually, I'm better represented by the government. They're listening to me. I have a voice, whereas people there think, nobody's caring about me, like people in the Rust Belt in the United States that then went out and voted for Donald Trump. This comes to my mind on the spur of the moment, and there might be something to it. Yeah,
sure. Just to clarify, I'm not saying that everyone who lives in the north of the UK is a flat earther. I've got friends who are in the north, and they won't be happy about that. One of the things that obviously is quite prevalent at the moment is vaccines, of course. In a recent poll, the question, do Brits think vaccines have harmful effects which are not being disclosed, was asked. 2,000 people were polled, but 4% of adults said definitely, and 16% said probably. That, to me, is a shocking result. Why do you think vaccines get this sort of negative attention?
That's a good question. I mean, in Germany, there's a big discussion at the moment about that medical staff in hospitals does not want to get vaccinated against corona. It's, the doctors want to get vaccinated, but the nurses are very reluctant. Sometimes it's down to a third. It's only a third that gets vaccinated at the moment. Of course, not all of them are conspiracy theorists, because this is a new vaccine, and there are people they just say there might be effects that we don't know about yet. But of course, there are also these who think there's a really conspiracy going on. They're hiding something from us. And I think the thing is that the positive effect of vaccines is something that most of us are not aware of. We don't see that because we don't have to deal with the things that vaccines are good against. So we only see these things when something is not working. So there is no media coverage of the millions of people who get vaccinated and to whom nothing happens. But then there are these weird cases about, people who are apparently damaged by vaccines. So there was the German conspiracy community has been highlighting a case of someone, a 91-year-old man in Switzerland who was vaccinated and against corona and died 3 days later, probably unrelated to the vaccine. But of course, they're making a big case out of that. So I think vaccines, you can't really see that. You don't understand how they're working. You don't really see the positive effects. I think this is one thing. And then on the other hand, it seems to be that the anti-vaxxers are highly organized and they're very good at public relations. So one of the things that my colleagues and I have been discussing in this network that I chaired for a while, this European network with people from 40 countries, is that no matter in the world where you are, in which language you Google about vaccination, you're always directed to a number of the same websites. So somebody must be spending money on that to get you there.
Time, definitely.
And I think this really has an impact on people.
Yeah, you're right. It just shocked me a bit over here in the UK. I mean, I don't know what it's like in Germany, but obviously you've got the vaccinations that you're supposed to have as a baby and as you're growing up. And 1 in 5 adults in this poll, anyway, are doubtful that these vaccines are working. And to me, that doesn't match up, because obviously most of the adult population have children, and they're supposed to be putting their children through this vaccination course. And what if they're withholding their children? It's just, it's very worrying, very worrying.
Yeah, I mean, we had some measles outbreaks in Germany. And I mean, the interesting thing about anti-vax conspiracy theories is that what we talked about earlier with education and propensity to conspiracy theories doesn't really work there, because the people who believe in medical conspiracy theories, especially vaccination conspiracy theories, are often very educated. So something that I get asked very frequently is, why is it that there is a considerable number of doctors, medical doctors, who believe that vaccination is harmful? So, and it's something I can't really explain. What I say then is, well, just because you've studied something, got a degree in something, and maybe are practicing something, doesn't mean that you're good in every area. Maybe you're really bad all across the board. But it's really puzzling that, I mean, we all know about Andrew Wakefield and others, but that there's such a high number, that's really weird.
But medicine is incredibly difficult to study. So you're right. I mean, someone who is a radiologist, for example, might not know anything about vaccines or not as much about vaccines. And it's got to be part of it for sure. Right. So it's this time of the show where we play our little game called Guess the Conspiracy. I'm a little bit worried because I think you probably know most conspiracies, but we'll give it a go. So, yes, it's the time where Katz and I have made up a fake conspiracy theory, and we're going to try and trick you as to select which conspiracy theory is the real one, in terms of the one that people actually believe, and the two that are fabricated by Katz and I. So Katz, unfortunately, because he wasn't here, hasn't been able to do one. So I've done the two. I fabricated both of the two which aren't true, in that no one believes them. Or I hope no one believes them anyway.
Not yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is the worry. After 7 episodes now. 7 episodes, and there's like all these new conspiracies going out there. I bet okay, so here we go. Number 1. Incorrect memories are a side effect of jumping dimensions. That's the first conspiracy theory. Number 2. A subspecies of human from the planet Mars came to Earth tens of thousands of years ago and advanced our technological evolution. And number 3. There is no such thing as the ozone layer. It's fabricated scientific theory made up by conservationists so the general public will listen. That's the 3.
They all sound very convincing, I have to say. Okay, now that might be pretty embarrassing. I have to make sure none of my students is going to watch this.
I don't want to put pressure on you, but it's 3-3. So we've got 3 and the guests have got 3. So if you get this right, you take the lead. If you get it wrong, Katz and I are in the lead.
I think that the second one is true.
You're going for
Mars.
The subspecies of human from the planet Mars came to Earth tens of thousands of years ago and advanced our technical evolution. Okay, is that your final answer?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we've done it. We've tricked. Well, sorry, I've done it. I've tricked you. So the real one. So yeah, the subspecies of human from planet Mars. I made that up, and I made the one up about the ozone layer as one as well. The real one is that incorrect memories are a side effect of jumping dimensions. The Mandela effect. Mandela effect. You heard of that one? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think I heard of
yeah.
that,
So obviously, but it is a real thing. The Mandela effect. You have a memory about something which isn't correct.
Yeah.
But
I was thinking of this Erich von Däniken thing about the Martians and the pyramids.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's loads like that, but I was quite specific.
The subspecies.
Yeah. So.
Good.
So yeah, unlucky. It's not an easy game. We're getting better at it.
It's good. It's actually quite reassuring that there are conspiracy theories that are not at the front of my mind all the time.
No, that is good. It is good. Look, when we started it, we were getting a bit too specific with our theories, and people were getting them. So we've started a bit more generalised, and we're doing it now. But anyway, 4-3 to us. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a fascinating chat about conspiracy theories. I do it week in, week out. Where can we find you? Are you on social?
I'm thinking about going on social.
Yes.
There is my Populism and Conspiracy Theory project is on Twitter. And we will start tweeting very soon. We're still thinking about how to introduce ourselves. It's ERC at #ERCPact is where we are.
Okay.
And you can just Google me and you'll find me. You'll find many YouTube videos of me. And of course, there is the English translation of my book now, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
The Nature of Conspiracy Theories. And I have an email address, and so feel free to contact me and yell at me for all the lies that I'm spreading.
Good stuff. We'll put all of that in the links in the description of the show as well. But thank you very much for joining us. So next week, we have got Daniel Clark, who is the director of the Netflix documentary Behind the Curve about the Flat Earthers. So that should be a very interesting chat. But for now, thank you very much. Goodbye.